New in LTS OnGuard, releases 60J through 60N. To start with, OpenVOS 17.2 has got a new version of the registration info. So this is the information about each user account that's on the system, and that affects, of course, all of the registration admin features. So if we take a look at the new version of registration admin, or registration info rather, number one, it doesn't overlay the registration info previous version, and it has things like the standard password, the previous standard passwords, password warn time, and a few other things. So this is now incorporated in with most recent 6.0 release, 6.0N. Now that was one of the many changes to the registration admin processing. We've had a lot of complaints because registration admin would allow the user to put bad data into a new registration or a modified registration. So we've totally rewritten the editing of the screen data as it's being entered. So now it's very, very difficult to put into registration admin data that would cause the second phase to fail. The next thing is in registration admin, and the process table feature is encrypting the password. In the past, a well-documented feature is that the TIN file has a clear text password when you are registering a user. One of our clients has objected strongly to that, so we have gone and rewritten the password processing such that the passwords are now encrypted. If you understand VOS, you know that there is a moment in time during the VOS registration admin processing where there is a TIN and a table with clear text. We have gone to extreme lengths to make that TIN and table on the system for a very, very short duration, and to make it almost impossible to find and to access the TIN and table. The other request, which is in this version of LTS registration admin, is multi-user access. The LTS-RA server originally was written to service only one active session of LTS registration admin. That has been changed such that LTS-RA server will now handle multiple sessions of LTS registration admin simultaneously, with the caveat, however, that all of the sessions must be complete before you actually do a process table. I would like to demonstrate, there's one other thing which I do want to bring up to your attention. Because of the need to protect the clear text password and all of that, we have removed the reuse last feature of LTS registration admin. Prior to this, LTS registration admin would put a file in the user's home directory which would in fact contain all of the TIN entries, including a clear text password. So we have removed this feature. It was well documented, but the last LTS-RA file is no longer used, and the reuse last switch is no longer available on registration admin. So if we take a look at, we have the option to process the table now, yes or no, but no reuse last. So if we are going through the registration process for a new user, for example. Let's go ahead and add a user LTS 77, L77. Now the password is in fact checked against all of the rules for passwords. And of course it's checked against itself for consistency. So we can, for example, put in a language here, and now that language field is checked against languages on the system. And we can, for example, well, let's go ahead and set this such that we have no default module, no create HomeDir, module names required. We will check to make sure that it is a valid module, and let's give it a valid module. So now that did take it, and if we were to go ahead and commit it, it will go through and do the processing steps to register the user, verify the user registration, it telling you whether the registration is completed successfully or not, and is telling you whether the sysdb was processed properly. And as you know, we can do a audit regadmin history and take a look at what has been done. So you can see, for example, that here's our ad, here are the fields, password of course is not shown, so it is all there. So the next thing is the privilege command server. We had two bugs, one where there could be an accumulation of a large number of temporary files in the LTS structure, in the LTS library structure. That has been fixed such that the temporary files are all cleaned up. There was also a significant memory leak in the privilege command server, which has been fixed. Execute privilege command and execute AS request. As you know, you should, if you're going to be doing any substantive work with LTS, you should do a start session. And that start session is giving you your own copy of the process which runs your programs. So if we do an execute privilege command and we say start session, I'm going to go ahead and just do a Louis P here. Notice now that there are two processes for the LTS command. So if we then do a LTS report PCS process, we'll see that there is PCTO4 is the process which is in fact executing our commands. So the other thing we've done now is that of course with the start session, if you execute an additional start session, which some of our command macros do, the front end macros, it's not going to complain. So if I go back here and do yes. Prior to that you would get an error. Now you're not going to get an error. Okay, one of the other things we have done is LTS report PCS process. One of the issues over the years is that the registration files, the VOS registration files that LTS expects to be in a certain place sometimes aren't there. So we have done an enhanced LTS report PCS process to diagnose if there are missing SysDBs So using the -reg option will give you everything we've seen before, but then we have the confirm registration environment. Okay, good, found SysDBs, good, master config, good, found SysDBs, good, local reg SysDB is where it should be, and good, local reg SysDB is where it should be. Now while we're here, we can also get more detail on this. If there is a problem, it will give us much more detail than we need at this point. And now the last thing that we have done here for the report PCS process is to confirm that we are getting the commands from the library that we want to get the commands from. LTS in general wants to get the commands out of its own library as opposed to going to the system command library. So if we do a display disk label, it's going to tell us where it's going to find that command. It says search libraries for display disk label. It says it found a CM and it found a PM, and it says the one is going to execute without having put in these executes of these suffixes will be coming from the LTS user library, which is the LTS front-end library on this system. So that's what we would expect to see. If we go here and type display disk label.pm, it's going to pull it out of the system command library, which is where it is ultimately coming from and executed from by the privileged command server. So every release that adds a feature may in fact require a change or an update to the system table, the LTS system table of available commands. We used to call the new versions command 10 entries and AS 10 entries. The new versions of those tables, or tins rather, are priv command commands.new, AS request commands.new. And to refresh you what they look like, here is the priv command commands, and it lists every command and the privilege class for that command, who can in fact run it. Now one of the things that we have done also is that we have realigned all of these commands in this table so that we have an LTS user. This is a set of commands, or a class rather, for the typical user, a developer for example. LTS admin is an administrator kind of person, so all of the commands that are administrator type commands like configure devices or configure disks are in the LTS admin class. LTS security, these are the commands like the audit commands or the create database commands. Your user should be in this class. And then you've got reg entry and reg process for those people who will be doing registration admin kind of work. So these are the default classes now for the with the recent release, and you may want to look at doing these using these new default classes, which more properly align with how the system works. So let's talk about the privilege command switch under Audit Who Accessed. Audit Who Accessed allows you to figure out who ran a particular command or who ran a particular file. And the privilege command switch on Audit Who Accessed tells the program to report against a privilege commands.txt file, which is a list of all of the privileged commands in the system. So the privilege commands.txt file, as I said, is a list of all the privilege commands in the system. It resides in the greater than system, greater than LTS, greater than tins library. And Audit Who Accessed, of course, is run against the accounting database. And to get the files and commands, you need to use accounting admin under VOS to log the commands and log the files. So if you do that, then if you do a create account log db, and I have previously run a little test here, so we'll do it for today. We'll say commands and files, which says pick up and process the commands and files records out of the accounting database. So let's go ahead and run this. So now if we do an Audit Who Accessed, and let's give it me as a user, and we're going to say privilege commands, so that will refer it to the privilege commands.txt file, and it will show anybody, well, it'll show all of the records that match me and privilege commands. So you can see that at 1838 I ran the display disk label command out of the command library. A couple of other fixes that are in this release. Audit LTS logs now reports the time correctly in the report. There was a bug previously where the time was not being reported. Audit ACL integrity can now be used against a device or against the root of a disk. And then there are new commands, LTS cancel batch and LTS update batch, which replace cancel batch requests and update batch requests. So these are the commands and things that have changed in the latest release to 6.0N of LTS OnGuard. Thank you.